What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Bo Nickal's next opponent announced. Undefeated prospect Bo Nickal could be back in the octagon sooner rather than later if the latest reports are believed to be accurate. According to middleweight Tresean Gore, he's already verbally agreed to fight Nickal. Allegedly, the UFC reached out to him about a fight with Nickal, which he quickly accepted. Gore, an Ultimate Fighter Season 29 alumni, took to social media to shed light on the situation, saying that all he's waiting for is the UFC to send the contract. The UFC let me know about 4 or 5 days ago about this potential matchup, and I'm all in, and agreed the moment the opportunity was offered to me. Been waiting patiently on my return. We both received each other's name, and that's that. How do you guys feel about me and Bo July 10th International Fight Week? After his run on The Ultimate Fighter, he was forced out of his fight in the finale as a result of a knee injury. When the UFC booked him for his first post-TUF fight, he dropped the decision to Bryan Battle, who he was supposed to fight in the TUF 29 finale originally, before then losing to Cody Brundage in July of 2022. With his back against the wall, Gore closed out 2022 with a big submission win over Josh Fremd. With a professional record of 4-2, he seems to like his chances against the undefeated 4-0 Nickal. With that said, many have questioned whether or not Nickal's recent win over Jamie Pickett really should have been ruled a no contest after a groin strike directly led to the takedown that Nickal used to secure the victory. For his part, Nickal has denied that the blow landed illegally, despite what fans may think the instant replay indicates. If these two wind up clashing on the International Fight Week card, how do you see things playing out? Sound off in the comments section below. Henry Cejudo wants Merab Dvalishvili as backup fighter for UFC 288. On the heels of Merab Dvalishvili's massive win over Peter Yan this weekend, Triple C Henry Cejudo has called for him to be the backup fighter for his UFC 288 clash with Aljamain Sterling. This, of course, comes after the UFC formally announced the UFC 288 bantamweight clash between Sterling and Cejudo this week. Despite the fight between the two being made official, Cejudo wants a contingent plan in place in case the Funkmaster is unable to compete. He took to social media with a message for Dana White.
So, dear Dana White, I'm over here watching the number 2 and number 3 contender, and I tell you what, I got a feeling that Al Gislame is more likely to kind of back out of this fight, right, Yuki? So that being said, why don't you give me Merab? Why don't you give me Merab? Since Sean O'Malley wants to wait, he wants to take his time.
Interestingly enough, Sean O'Malley, who previously declined the offer to be the official backup fighter for the title fight, responded saying that he would be ready to fight if Sterling backs out. Although Dvalishvili is poised for a title shot, he's made it clear that he has no intentions of fighting his friend and teammate Aljamain Sterling. The way Dana White sees things, that's not a good career move for Merab. Of course, with Sterling being open about his desire to move to 145, this may all be a moot point. Who do you want to see as the backup fighter for Sterling versus Cejudo? Sound off below. Brendan Schaub names heavyweight division's dark horse. Although John Jones looked incredibly dominant in his heavyweight debut as he submitted Cyril Gane to capture UFC gold, former heavyweight Brendan Schaub believes that there's a dark horse in the heavyweight division that could give Jones plenty of trouble. He spoke on a recent episode of his podcast about the heavyweight title picture.
I think the dark horse that can kind of dethrone John would be Tom Aspinall. He's 100% health with his knee. His boxing's ridiculous. His footwork, he's quick, good cardio, black belt on the ground, good wrestling. He's a handful.
Yeah.
But with his leg injury, still ways out. But
while many have cited Aspinall as one of the division's best and brightest prospects, the knee injury he sustained last year against Curtis Blades in the main event of UFC Fight Night London has significantly derailed his run at the title. Fortunately, Aspinall recently stated that he's beginning to look towards his return. With much of the heavyweight division booked for fights, however, Aspinall is content to bide his time before booking a bout. When he returns and begins his run at the title once more, who do you want to see him face? Sound off down below. Jorge Masvidal shuts down talk of fighting Michael Chandler if he defeats McGregor. For quite a few years now, talk of a potential Conor McGregor versus Jorge Masvidal showdown has continued to surface in the headlines. Although UFC President Dana White stated that Masvidal is simply too big for McGregor, the Irish superstar's recent physique, after bulking up during his recovery, has the potential fight back in the headlines. During a recent interview, Masvidal shut down talk of potentially squaring off against Chandler if he were to emerge victorious in his upcoming fight. At the same time, Masvidal left the door open for a fight against McGregor given the money that could be made, despite the fact that the Irish superstar may not move him closer to his ultimate goal of winning a championship.
I'm not necessarily too interested on Chandler. I know he's got a big name in the sport and he puts on great fights and he goes out in the Shield and he's always entertaining and stuff. but I'm at 170 pounds trying to get a world title. That's why I'm fighting Gilbert Burns. You know, I'm not fighting him because he's the biggest draw, because he's not. You know, I'm fighting him because he's number 3 and number 4 in the world currently.
With Masvidal set to square off with Gilbert Burns at UFC 287 on April 8th, it'll be interesting to see how things shake out in the welterweight division. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love, and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Dana White gets exposed? As Dana White's Power Slap League continues to struggle to gain viewership, the UFC president is pulling out all the stops. For the Season 1 finale, White packed the house with social media influencers while promoting the Power Slap event on UFC social media channels. As it turns out, however, not all of the engagements surrounding the event may have been authentic. On the heels of White claiming that the competition was generating tremendous numbers on social media, MMA Junkie's Matthew Wells pulled several screenshots of tweets that were shown on the broadcast. With a quick Twitter search, Wells was able to show that the accounts tweeting about Power Slap hadn't been active in months. In addition, they didn't appear to actually have posted the tweets shown on the Power Slap broadcast. As Bloody Elbow's Steffi Haynes pointed out, many years ago, during the glory days of the Underground and SureDogs forums, before the rise of MMA Twitter, the UFC used to allegedly send sock puppet dummy accounts to promote their upcoming cards in the forums, much like what's suspected is happening with Power Slap. Only time will tell whether Seasons 2 or 3 help the promotion get off the ground.
And now for our breaking news story of the day. We have a UFC fighter pulling out of a UFC fight on March 25th. It was reported earlier today that Alex Caceres is out of his UFC fight with Nate Landwehr. Luckily, Austin Lingo is stepping in on short notice. What do you guys think about this fight?
Alexander Volkov wants to avenge previous losses. UFC heavyweight Alexander Volkov is ready to go on a revenge tour after his quick first-round win over Alexander Romanov in the co-main event of the UFC Fight Night Yan vs. Dvalishvili event. The towering striker spoke during the post-fight press conference through a translator, explaining his desire to avenge his previous losses inside the octagon. Really, I'd like to possibly revenge somebody that I've lost to. Maybe, for instance, my rematch with Gane would be interesting. Volkov's revenge tour means he's setting his sights on one of 4 opponents. Since joining the UFC, Volkov has fought a who's who of fighters in the UFC. After winning the M1 Global Heavyweight title, he joined the UFC in 2016, rattling off 4 straight wins before meeting Derek Lewis at UFC 229. With time winding down on the clock, Lewis landed a big punch that secured him a shocking come-from-behind win. After the loss, Volkov bounced back with a big win over Greg Hardy before dropping a decision to Curtis Blades in 2020. He then rattled off 2 straight TKO wins over Walt Harris and Alistair Overeem before meeting Ciryl Gane in a 5-round main event in 2021. The fight saw Volkov ultimately lose a unanimous decision in what many considered a clash between 2 of the best strikers in the heavyweight division. Since then, Volkov has lost just once, a first-round submission loss to Aspinall. With plenty of time left in the year, who of the 4 men do you want to see Volkov fight next as he looks to go on his revenge tour? Sound off in the comments section down below. Today's video was packed with some juicy stories from the fight world. What are your thoughts about what's going on in MMA? Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to see more videos just like this. See you next time.